Hello, this is a departure from my usual YouTube videos where I do commentary and or strategy discussion on board games. Well, I suppose this is technically a board game and technically a game strategy discussion, so more of the same, I guess. So this is actually a show inspired by the likes of The Amazing Race called Jetlag the Game. You can check it out on nebula.tv. And so far, they have released the first episode of this game. Now, we don't know what happens in the second episode, but based on where they left off in the first episode, I'm going to do some predictions and analyze the strategy and the board state from the end of the episode. And perhaps that will inform you of what might happen when the next episode drops. So this video will only make sense if you actually watch that first episode. So if you haven't, go do so now. I'll be waiting for you here. Spoilers coming right ahead now. Before we dive into the episode 2 discussion, I think it's prudent to first look at what happened in the first episode. So this was Ben's run. He started off at Yongsan Station and followed the red line all the way down to Hong Song Station. As soon as he announced his location of Hong Song to the blockers, he had basically checkmated himself. And you can see why. Right? From Hong Song, the only way Ben could go from there was down south towards Iksan. He could technically go north, but no matter which route he takes from up north, he will end up crashing into his own line and ending his run. So by leaving himself with only one option, and by announcing it to the blockers, who are Sam and Adam, could easily respond by making a beeline towards Iksan, plant down a block there, and force him to crash. So I think that shows what you want to do as a runner, which is, as far as possible, at all times during the game, threaten at least 2 possible paths from your current location. That way, you keep the blockers on their toes. They have to keep playing guessing games. So with that in mind, let's talk about where we left off, which is Ben getting caught at Iksan Station 6 hours into the game day. Now, I assume this 6 hours counts the 1 hour jail period that the runner was in as part of the game rules. So given the 7 a.m. start time, Ben would have been caught at 1:05, let's say 1:06 p.m. So the next runner, Sam, would hence be able to leave Iksan Station at 2:06 p.m. So what are his options? And more importantly, what are the blockers' options? So first and foremost, one thing we immediately notice from the game map is that Iksan Station is connected to Osong Station directly via high-speed rail. And as drawn in this map, you can see that Osong Station is a very dangerous station for the runner to be in because it offers them a lot of optionality. Remember how we talk about it's important to threaten multiple paths out? Well, from Osong Station, you can go in 4 completely different directions. So yeah, it's as if the runner basically makes it to Osong safely. The blockers will have an impossible time fencing the runner in because they can go out in any which direction. So because of this, I would say that not just for the upcoming run, but in general, if the starting location is directly connected to Osong Station, I think it would be very prudent for the blockers to immediately hit there and throw down a block. In fact, I would go so far as to say that it is a forced move by the blockers to block Osong quickly. So I have plotted out some numbers here on the map. These basically correspond to the approximate amount of time it takes to get from one station to another in minutes. So that gives you a better sense of the geography of this rail network. And that makes it easier for us to discuss the possible strategies. So Now that we know that the blockers are probably going to go up to Osong and defend that station first, as the runner, you probably do not really have that option unless you want to run head first into a roadblock and yeah, challenge that, which is possible. Make no mistake, overcoming roadblocks is part of the game. But there are also other options, and we'll consider those options one by one, starting with the eastward option. Well, Osong is eastward, but if, assuming the blockers do the natural thing and block Osong off, uh, the runner can hit to Sodejon. So this is a pretty good route because it allows the runner to avoid Osong while still maintaining the threat of the north-south fork. So basically, the runner can still have the option to go all the way up north to Yongsan or go south or east, sorry, towards Daejeon and Dongdaegu. This part of the map is pretty tricky. You'll notice that I have marked this with distance instead of the usual number of minutes, and that's because as far as I can tell on the train timetables, there is no direct train from Seodaejeon to Daejeon. They are stations within the same city or town, and they are 3 kilometers apart. I am assuming, based on what I'm seeing, that it is legal for the runner to make their way on foot from one station to another. I could be wrong. There is no official confirmation on this, but I think this makes the most sense given what I'm seeing so far. In which case, this could be a very strong option. Keep in mind that the runner is Sam, and he's known to be a very fast runner. I think he can easily cover 3 kilometers under 20 minutes. So as soon as he announces that he is in Sodejon, he can make his way to Daejeon in 20 minutes by foot. So if the blockers are not already at Daejeon dropping down a roadblock at this point, it is very possible for Sam to escape towards the east this way. And this is a very dangerous proposition for the blockers. Because Iksan all the way to the east coast, this is a huge distance. And the blockers will not be able to get ahead of Sam if he manages to slip through this way, because this is the high-speed rail, right? Normally, how you get in front of the blocker of the runner is to take the high-speed rail while the runner is chugging their way up slowly along a local train line. But in this case, the high-speed rail is the fastest thing, and the runner's on it. So this is possibly the worst-case scenario for the blockers. And as such, I think it is very prudent for them to block Daejeon right after finishing Osong because of this very threat. Because even after Sam hits Dongdaegu or Gyeongju, Sam still has a lot of possible optionalities. He can threaten to go up north, go down south, and keep the runners guessing, keep the blockers guessing. Right? So this is a very dangerous path, and yeah, the two central hubs on this map are Osong and Daejeon. So I think blocking Daejeon in advance is not a bad idea. So that is only the first option we are talking about, and it's already constraining the blockers to a very specific set of moves, blocking 2 stations before the runner can get too far ahead. We haven't even considered the other options yet, which throw even more chaos into the mix. So the second option is going up north to Hongsong. So basically, the exact route that Ben took, but in reverse. So this is a nice route. It is a little slow, right? Because this is a low speed line. So it takes a good, hour and more than an hour and a half to get up there. But the reason this is nice is that this route still offers a lot of optionality, just like the eastern route. Right, you can see here, this is actually a loop. Like, there are trains that run in this circle, and then crisscrossing this loop, there are 2 lines. There's this line, high-speed line going down to Daejeon, and there's this other line, which is also fairly fast and frequent that goes down to Daeshon as well. So there's a lot of options for the runner to evade the blockers. But perhaps Sam will be a bit reticent to take this path, if only because this is the exact path that Ben took before. So maybe he wants to try something new, which is why I think if I were a betting man, I would guess that Sam would take the next option, option number 3, which is to go further south. Now, this option is basically impossible for the blockers to cover, which is blocking off Suncheon, right? Sure, the blockers could use their 1 hour head start to head south and drop a roadblock down on Suncheon, but this would be a straight up hard read, right? Because if the blockers are wrong, if Sam decides to go any other route other than south, the blockers have basically left the entire high-speed rail and everything north of it wide open for the runner. So this would be a very foolish move. It allows a lot of worst-case scenarios to happen. So I highly doubt that the blockers will pursue this route. As a result, this makes the southbound route very appealing for Sam, the runner. He can go down south and be fairly confident that there will be no ambushes waiting for him there. About as confident as you can be in this game. I think the blockers have to pretty much concede that if Sam chooses to go south, that he will be able to make it to Suncheon and in fact go all the way up to either Dongdaegu or Gyeongju, whichever he prefers. There's nothing you can do about it, and it is basically as I wrote here, practically guaranteed 300 km-ish score, which would definitely beat Ben's initial run. The only downside to this path really is that it is probably not going to be much better than a 300 km-ish score, simply because this low speed portion takes a good 2 to 3 hours to cover. So that's 2 to 3 hours where the blockers can easily make up for lost time by heading down to the east coast via high-speed rail and then throwing down roadblocks all over this messy area where there are many nodes for the blockers to slow down the runner. So it feels very unlikely that Sam can break out of this web, assuming that Ben and Adam throw down a good defense around this area. And don't forget that assuming they made the initial play of blocking down both Osong and Daejeon, then basically the entire high-speed network from the center of Korea all the way down to the East Coast is basically unusable. So I think this is a reliable strategy, but not one that gets particularly far. That said though, Sam only has 1 hour to come up with his plan, whereas I have spent many hours poring over the map and studying this. So I think just by looking at the first possible move by both the runner and the blockers, I think Iksan down to Suncheon makes a lot of sense, and it's a way to see something new, right? See a different part of Korea. So I think it is highly likely that Sam will pursue this route. Now, this would be the end of the video if you are studying the game strategy purely based on the game map that was produced by the Jetlag team. However, if you go onto the Koryo website and begin experimenting with the possible routes out of Iksan, there is one more route that is particularly fiendish and has the potential to catch the blockers off guard, and that's option number 4, where the runner basically teleports directly to Yongsan Station. Now, I know this sounds wild, but here's the proof. There is a high-speed line that goes up. The train passes through Osong Station as far as I'm aware, but does not actually stop there. And Ben from Jetlag the game has confirmed that in such a case, Uh, yeah, if there are any roadblocks or battle challenges at the node, well, they're skipped because obviously the runner cannot do roadblocks or battle challenges if the train doesn't stop there. So it goes all the way up to Yongsan. And at 5 p.m., which is about 3 hours after Sam gets to start running, he says, "Sorry guys, I'm up here." And yeah, considering what we were talking about with defense in the central part of Korea, this would be a huge shocker, right? Especially because this is not something that seems apparently possible with this depiction of the game board. I think the scariest part about this play is that, going back to fundamentals, this is a play that can threaten both the north-south fork, right? The runner might be taking the train up to Yongsan, or they might be on their way to Suncheon, slated to arrive at 4:47 p.m. versus 5:03 p.m. The blockers do not know whether the runner's heading up north or down south. The blockers cannot cover both options, and if they make a wrong guess, they will be left stranded very far behind the runner, right? And I think that would be an incredible strategy to pull off as the runner if Sam is able to identify this line of play. Of course, I'm also assuming that the train timings that I see on the Koryo website today, the train schedules are exactly the same as they were a few months back when the team was playing this game. I believe they filmed in early April. It's now mid-June, so about 2.5 months ago. Has the schedule changed a lot since then? Perhaps. Maybe this train did not even exist 2.5 months ago. We don't know. So all this is pure speculation. It might not even be possible, but if it was, this I think would be a very strong runner strategy. Forking between teleporting up north directly to Yonsan and going down to Suncheon. So really, one of the few ways that the blockers have to guard against this is to use a tracker. This is one of the random items they could pull from the deck. We might see it. Depends on how lucky or unlucky they get. Right, so I think that begs the question, what happens when the runner reaches Yongsan? Well, judging by the map, the northeastern part of Korea doesn't appear to have high-speed rail. It's all low speed, so it might not be the worst idea to let Sam go off at Yongsan. It's very difficult to block because Osong and Daejeon are really too important. And yeah, so you can say, all right, you can make your way down to Sowonju, and if that's the case, they can always head up from Osong to try to intercept them that way, right? So it's not the end of the world if Sam makes it all the way up to Yongsan. However, that's assuming that high speed is not in play, because once again, the map doesn't tell the full story. So, after Sam arrives at Yongsan, assuming he takes this teleportation direct route, this shortcut, after he arrives at 5 p.m., there is a train that goes to this station called Cheongyangni. After the rest period, he can transfer from this station and get all the way to Gangneung in the morning. Now you might be wondering, where exactly is Gangneung? This is not a node. In fact, none of these stations are nodes. So where is Gangneung? Gangneung is all the way in the northeast. Basically, this itinerary runs along the same line as Sangbong, Sowonju, and Jinbu, all of which are nodes on the game board. But this itinerary never stops at any of these nodes. It is possible for the runner to teleport all the way there and end up taking another connection down to, say, Donghae. So from the blocker's point of view, it will look something like this. Sam mysteriously teleports to Yongsan at 5 p.m. and then next morning, sometime around noon, he teleports to Donghae. This is absolutely ridiculous, and I would say it breaks the game. So I do not think that this move is legal. I think they have some sort of fine print in the rules to make this itinerary illegal. Something along the lines of you are not allowed to transit at non-nodal stations. I think that probably makes sense. Runners not being able to transit at stations that are not nodes. This would basically block off this high-speed rail that runs along the northern part of the game map. But it's still an option for the blockers themselves, because the blockers presumably do not have such a restriction. So perhaps in the future we might see blockers using this itinerary to really catch the runner off guard. I find this really fascinating because if you look at the game map prepared by the Jetlag team, you'll notice that there is no high-speed rail. This whole northern section is not represented by the thick high-speed rail indicator. So I assume that this was by design, that they excluded this high-speed rail as an option for the runner during this game. Perhaps it proved too game-breaking in testing or something. Regardless, I find this very fascinating, and we'll see if this line ever comes into play. For now, that concludes the strategy analysis for episode 2. All in all, I think that Sam is pretty blessed to have been gifted the starting position of Ixan. There is a lot of optionality out of Ixan. I think there's a very high chance that he beats Ben's time. I don't think that's the real question. The real question is, can he set a very strong score? We'll have to wait and see.